go stress tonight, take some time tonight. Gotta get it right, baby, before we lose it. Take a plane tonight, get away tonight. Take you to the moon and show you what I'm doing. Think about life in the moment, living my life right now. I be like, shit's too important, no, you can't bring me down. Stop trying hard to please him, you could just be yourself. Right now you're someone else, right now I'm riding through the city with my windows down. Something's in the air, I can feel that loud. Someone bring me back to life or we all go down. Something's gotta change, I can feel that loud. Yeah, I'll be upset when I see the news. I'm thinking my dad, cause he taught me to be patient with life. You need no approval. I'll be upset, I'll be upset. I'll be upset when I watch the movies. Movies set up to teach you to lose. I'm hard on myself, now I gotta choose to. I'll be upset, I'll be upset.
Thanks for being here. Really, it's pretty cool. I think just where I'm coming from is like, you know, your story really jumped out at me. Reading these for the Beyond the Collection stuff, we had a ton of submissions. So I got to actually go through and read them all personally. And they were all great stories. But yours in particular really jumped out to me because I felt like I've been on a similar arc of a story, right? Being burnt to the ashes, like you said. And those were the words that you used. And when I described my experience along my journey with whatever that was for me, it's the same wordage. So it felt like I knew exactly what you were saying. I was reading your story, and though the details of your story are going to be different than mine because we all have our own unique life, right? It's man, I could feel it jumping out at me. And it's like, because you're a collector and because I was a collector and because I started Vaulted Vinyl and I'm on my own journey, it's like we get to meet, and like that is so great because, you know, it's people like you that make this possible. Like I'm able to do this, I'm able to grow this and share my story with the world. So thanks for being here. That's awesome.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So the Dark Phoenix.
Yeah.
You were saying that this was the pop that kind of serves as a reminder. I don't know if it was like an idealistic view when you were going through a tough time, like when you got burnt to the ashes and you were at like ground zero and it felt so bad. Was it just the idealistic view that you were chasing? Like that was something that you were looking up to at that time and trying to be like that?
Well, kind of. I think it's more who she is. It wasn't necessarily the pop, it's the character for me.
Yep.
I was born in 82. So the 80s and 90s, we had the best cartoons and comic books, hands down. You know, music and cars, not so much. But comic books and cartoons, everybody wanted to get up on Saturday morning and watch cartoons. And X-Men resonated with me in a really dark time in my life. And Jean Grey was kind of, especially in the beginning, not talked about. And people didn't know about her. I'm like, oh, she can move stuff with her mind, big whoop. She wasn't Storm. She wasn't Beast or Wolverine. And she wasn't as, you know, beautifully drawn as Rogue was. She was just kind of there. But when I started watching, and all that X-Men was on that deeper level was about people who were different, and they were ostracized for being different, and they were hated for being different. And you have this group of people that chose to use their differences for good or their gifts for bad. And even, you know, in the times when they were being just beat down by the world, they were still turning around and protecting those and trying to save those that were hurting them. And then as Jean developed, you find out that not only was she this protector and mother figure, she was ultimately like the strongest, most amazing character there was, and had huge, you know, she was an empath and she had her telekinesis. And then, you know, she had all of these things brought into her. And it wasn't until she was allowed to stop having those blocks and allowed to be out of the boxes that she was told she had to be in that she really soared. And yeah, she did do some bad things in her storyline, but she really tried to do good and tried to protect those that she loved. And that was something that I had to deal with and face from birth. I was born into drama from the get-go. And so she just really drew to me. And it was just a character, a fictional character that I related to for so long. And, you know, you grow up and when I was growing up, you didn't get to be and, you were or. So you were either the jock or the nerd. You couldn't be the jock that liked playing Dungeons and Dragons, you know, and so you couldn't be the girl that was, I grew up in the ag industry, so I was the Aggie. So I couldn't be the geek who loves comic books and cartoons, cars, music, you know, all these other things. You had to be one or the other. And that limits us. And so Jean Grey and Dark Phoenix, it was really that character that showed me that there were no limits, and we were able to move forward that way.
Wow. How old were you when you first came into contact with X-Men and Dark Phoenix?
I want to say it was early 90s. I know the comic had been around for a long time. But so I had to be probably around 10, 11.
You mentioned about being boxed in and how you couldn't be things that perhaps you wanted to be or that you were inside of you. Tell me about like the first time you felt that.
That kind of goes back into like deeper into my life. Unfortunately, and I think fortunately, in the long run, I was a child who at the age of 3 started going through sexual and mental abuse. So when you go through things like that, you start to get that mind manipulation. And for my particular case, it was if you say anything, I'm going to hurt your mom and your sister and your family and all this other stuff, even though this was somebody that was supposed to protect me and be there in my life. And so I automatically became this young protector of my family. And that became, and I say it's not, you know, now that's just such an integral part of who I am, that I embrace that part of it. Like I am that protector. But at the time when you're 3 to 7 years old, you don't really deal with that. So you start finding yourself being compartmentalized in these areas of your life. And later on, my mom got out of that situation. It was one of a relationship that she was in. And I told, and we went through all those processes, and it became a new journey, but it was a new box, because at the time, again, in the 80s and 90s, these types of traumas weren't discussed. And so it was very much like, oh no, you've got to keep this quiet. Like, we don't want people to know you're damaged, or that some of it's guilt on your family's part, because your family's like, oh my God, I didn't protect my kid. And so they don't want to talk about it, which is fine, because it's not something you talk about at family dinner. Like, hey, like this is what happened. But there does need to be that evolution in it. And you get stuck into these mindsets that you have to be quiet and you can't talk about the things that are impacting you. So now I need to be the good daughter and not say this because it might hurt my mom or might hurt my dad, because they didn't feel like they could protect me. So that's really when I started feeling like, okay, I can't be this because I have to be this at the moment.
Wow.
Yeah, you didn't know you were going that deep, huh?
No, it seems like it's one of those, like I'm trying to figure life out as well, right? Mm-hmm. And it just seems like it's one of those things where, man, there's a lot of things that happen in life that are like, you know, that are tough times, like much tougher than I've ever been through, right? So when I mentioned, hey, my story, I can feel this in a similar arc, a similar story for myself. I think a lot of times we forget that, you know, there's people out there that are facing much worse at a younger age. You said you were 3 years old.
One of the things that you go through when you go through that kind of trauma, especially when you divulge it, that most people don't talk about, is all of a sudden you kind of become a science experiment. So in having to go through the court processes and stuff, you have to get evidence, which means physical poking, prodding. You go to therapists that, you know, at the time, their job wasn't to help you get out of your head or whatever. It was to make sure to see whether or not you were lying or telling the truth, because those are the court therapists. Right. So there was about a 3-year period that ended right about age 9, 10 is when we finally got through and we got the conviction. And that was when I was supposed to start my healing process. Well, that's also about the time puberty starts to hit. So you're looking at yourself going, okay, I can't talk about it because I'm damaged. I'm been poked and prodded like a science rat in a cage. You feel different and you feel, yeah, I mean, science experiment is the best way I could put it. And so that was when all of a sudden, when X-Men arrived and you're like, they're different, but they can do something good with it and learn from it. And, trying to discover myself in that time, I developed an eating disorder. I became really heavy. I drowned all my sorrows in food because I wanted to hide. But then I found a different kind of exposure because now you're the fat kid. And so it was like, okay, I had to, again, you're getting put in that bubble. So now I'm the fat kid. And I don't know, it's just watching her evolution of being just the mother figure, and this X-Men that was basically, her in her storyline, her mind was being controlled by Xavier because he knew how powerful she was and that she couldn't control it. So he put on all these things. And it was interesting to see these patterns evolve. And I found myself, when I'm with my dad, I had to be a certain way. And then when I was with my mom, I had to be a certain way because, of course, they're divorced. Then when you're with your grandparents, you're a certain way. And when you're at your school, you're a certain way. And you can never be all of it. And I just wanted to be able to be all of it. And then, but then that carries on to adulthood. And part of my story that I said was when I got this particular pop, I new to a divorce. I'd been with my ex-husband for almost 18 years. We have 3 teenage daughters. And my oldest is 15. I got 13-year-old twins.
Wow.
And but to have my daughters and be so excited that they know about my story. I've talked to them now that they're older. They know about the things that mom's gone through because that's part of what makes mom who she is. And but once I started seeing in my relationship with my ex-husband, it wasn't that we were bad, but that I was still boxed. I had to be the perfect wife and the perfect mom, not because he asked me to be, but because that was what I felt I had to be. And I couldn't be completely myself. And he understood that.
Wow.
And just, really letting down everything and starting over. You burn everything. You start from scratch. You do it all over again, and you just hope that you can soar.
It seems to me that when you were 3, like that age, there was another ashes burning event kind of. So you've had multiples throughout your life. And really it seems to me, and like my experience through my life is that we're just on a journey to figure out who we are, figure out what this all is. And it's like, when it clicks for you, it's like, how can I, like you were saying, how can I be the good in the world?
Like what I loved about X-Men too, because everybody was different. Everybody had their own journey with their mutations, but they chose whether or not they were going to go down that Magneto bad path and try to destroy everything, or try to make it a better world. And we have that ability in us. And I have a cousin that went through a very similar story as mine. And unfortunately, she went down a whole different path. And that could have very easily been me. That could have very easily happened to anybody. It's the choices that we make and how we choose to try to change it. And as an adult, and now having daughters and wanting them to be stronger women, I know I'm going to be 39 in like 2.5 weeks. And I know up through even just this last year, my own self-confidence, because of everything I've gone through, especially with my physical self. And then you have all these media interactions telling you how you're supposed to be as a female, or what you're supposed to look, that box that everybody keeps trying to put everybody else in. And I'm not wanting that for my daughters, so I tried to use my voice. My 3 girls play softball. I ended up becoming a softball coach. I've never played softball in my life. And so everybody's like, are you a coach? I said, no, I'm a motivational speaker. That's going to be
it.
my job. I'm not a coach. I'm
Yes.
a motivational speaker. I'm going to find people that know how to play the game and they will help me. My job is to be there for your daughter and teach her to be a strong woman. Teach the future doctors, lawyers, therapists, stay-at-home moms, whatever they want to be, they're allowed to be. And they could be that, and they could be a doctor and a stay-at-home mom. Why not? And that's what I tried to do. And like you said, there's many times that we face in our lives. I've had a lot of family, unfortunately, that passed away from cancer. So I became really predominant in the American Cancer Society with Relay for Life and was an event lead. And for the girl that wants to hide and wanted to hide most of her life, I was suddenly on stage in front of all these people discussing, my stepdad at the time who was terminal. And it was like huge. But you've got to take those moments and decide what you're going to do with them. And, through the divorce process and things like talking to my daughters and them going through COVID and being locked up and not being able to see their friends and their teenagers, and they're going through depression issues. And I tell them, I'm like, it's okay for us to have bad moments. Like, you're allowed to not be happy all the time. They don't see that a lot from mom. She does get cranky, but I try to embody that, where it's okay that we have a bad day. It's okay that we have a bad moment. We just can't stay there. We can't stay in the dark. We have to light that fire and get out of it, or else we're going to just disappear into nothing. And then it nothing else matters. And that's not okay, because we're here because we matter.
Bingo. You're getting me fired up. I feel this, I feel that. And that's how I am viewing the world as well. But take me into the moment when shit's hitting the fan and things in your life feel like they're falling apart and who you once were is gone. What is it in that dark moment that you don't give up?
Shit. I don't know.
Because you haven't. You're here and you're doing exactly what you say you want to do.
And that was why I was pretty stoked when you emailed me, because that is something I've learned. Like, even writing that down, even though it was a little bit of a snippet,
yeah,
I cried. And my friend doesn't even know I did it. So like, I'm sure he got the email. Like, he's not even going to know. He's going to know who he is. But I cried, and I cried when I read it today. And you have, I don't know, you go through those processes in your story, and I'm like, I can't give up. And I remember having a conversation with my grandmother one time, and I'm like, Grandma, it just isn't fair. Like, the parts that I just told you about are literally like this much of my entire story. And it's like, some people are a Dr. Phil episode. I'm like a Dr. Phil season. Okay. No lie.
Got it. It's awesome.
But you can't, my grandmother, she was very sweet. She goes, honey, sometimes people have to carry more because they're strong enough to. Other people aren't. And you just have to keep fighting and know that you're going to make it to the end. And so I rely a lot on faith, and I rely a lot on just trying to be a good person. And I really feel like when we can just be good and give good, yeah, bad things are going to happen to us, but the more we can give, the more comes back to us. It comes back tenfold. And so when I talk about my story with people, or I'm out there with girls that range from 8 to 15 on the softball field, and I have a couple of them who've gone through their own traumas, and their moms are like, can you talk to my daughter? How does she get out of this? And it's like, I'm not a shrink. I don't, I barely have my college any college in me. I'm not a professional, but I can talk from a place of my heart. And if they're okay with me talking from a place from my heart and sharing, my experience and what I do now, then great. And if it helps them realize that these moments don't last forever, then it'll be better. So, and that's the key, is we got to just remember it's a moment. It's not forever. And that's the only thing that I could do to push me through, and trying to be a woman I want my daughters to be proud of, and that I want them to be. and try to break those cycles of dwelling and of bad. Just try to be the light, you know. So, and then that gets into my, I'm a Marvel nerd, but I'm also a Star Wars nerd. So we have that dark and light constantly. So
you are the light. You know, you're saying you're trying to be. I'm telling you, you are. I can feel it. I see it. It is like everything within you, and that's why I'm a firm believer that that's why we're here, sitting here today, meeting, because the same things that you are saying are the same things that I believe, and you had a different experience. And you know, I'll go on with my life, and you'll go on with your life, and learn new things and improve to figure out how we can better combat the dark times when they come, because it's like cyclical, it seems. But man, like I feel like I just want to sit here and speak with you for a long time, because I can learn so much. And you know, we all go through dark times, you know, and when I'm there and I'm in the dark time, you know, and the anxiety gets in and things like that, and you're wondering, you know, is it going to work out, or this and that, whatever it may be, like you're going to be a voice in there now for me. You're going to be a voice for me, because this is the first one of, I know I'm talking a lot, but I just want to like give the perspective on this, is like, this is the first Beyond the Collection, and we'll see what happens with it, and if we do a YouTube thing, or how we do it. But you know, I'm on my own journey, and it's like a journey to be as best as I can be, and to be as good as I can be for the people that I love, for my customers, for everything. And it sounds like you are doing the same thing in your life. And I just am so grateful that you're here. I'm so grateful that it just so happened to work out that yours was the story that I latched onto first. There was a few of them, and I sent those few messages for like the first round, and you getting back to me so quick. And now it just makes so much sense, because you're just such a bright light. You attracted me to you. And it's like we were trying to find each other and help share the message. So man, thanks for being here. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. And I'm excited to be on this journey. And I can't wait to see what happens in the world. And luckily my friend got me into Funko Pops, and he was actually the one that told me about you guys too. And
oh, great. Yeah.
And so we're just happy to be here. Thanks.
All right. If you need anything from me, anything at all, if you have any questions, if you want to check in, and whatever it may be, reach out to me. Don't hesitate. I'm here. I'll get back to you. So thanks again for sharing the story. I know we could go on for hours and hours, and maybe we'll connect again and we'll do it again. But
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you have an awesome night.
Thank you. You as well.
Yeah. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.